Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 80 based on novel. So let's start. When a huge golden thunder flashed out in the trapped god array, the whole void collapsed at this moment. Outside the array, the original clear sky suddenly became a little dizzy. At the moment when the terrible thunder with a very destructive atmosphere burst out, Mu Han, who was rushing opposite, had an uncontrollable sudden change in his face. He quickly mobilized his fighting spirit again, and quickly condensed a fighting mask around his body in order to resist the sudden terrorist bombardment. Oh, can you stop it? Seeing that Mu Han didn't dare to face the attack, he resisted with fighting spirit. However, Xiao Yan couldn't help but evoke a sneer at the corners of his mouth and said faintly. When the voice in Xiao Yang's mouth fell, under the eyes of countless people, the terrible golden thunder had been pounded on the gas mask condensed by Mu Han in a hurry. Bang! The two touch each other, and everyone present is shocked that the gas mask condensed by Mu Han was destroyed by the golden terrorist thunder in an almost destructive and imperious way. At the moment when the mask was broken, the remaining power on the thunder was merciless. The next moment, Mu Han fell on Mu Han's body in his frightened look. With a muffled sound, Mu Han's body completely flew out of control. At the same time, he couldn't help spitting out a large mouthful of reverse blood in his mouth. He could only see that people couldn't help feeling a slight pain in his chest. For Mu Han, the blow was not shallow. Puff! When Mu Han managed to stay in shape, he couldn't help spitting out a big mouthful of blood again. Who could have thought that taking Xiao Yang was already close at hand? How could something suddenly appear at the critical moment and beat him unprepared? What surprised Mu Han most at the moment was that the owner of the thunder was not weaker than him. The guy who just appeared seems to be another 9-star and a half emperor. Cough. At the thought of this, the look on Mu Han's old face could not help but change again. The whole face was full of dignified look. He could not imagine that there would be 2 9.5 emperors on Xiao Yang. Cough. Again, he coughed violently. Mu Han raised his eyes and looked at the opposite at the moment. When he saw Xiao Jin, he was shocked by his huge body. The appearance of the golden dragon made people feel a kind of dignity. The terrible thunder around him added a bit of domineering spirit to him. Even at this moment, we can still see that among the thunder around its body surface, there are also some painted black terrorist thunder from the depths of the void thunder pool. However, these terrible thunder that can't be controlled in ordinary days are like seeing the king and obediently submit to Xiao Jin's feet. This is the thunder in the void thunder pool. Seeing those thunder moments, Mu Han looked slightly stunned at first, and then fiercely raised his head and looked at Xiao Jin's huge eyes. In Jin Kankan's eyes, there are several thunder lights at the moment, which are like a small snake in the depths of Xiao Jin's pupils. Sure enough, Mu Han's heart seemed to understand something in a short time. A little surprised look appeared in a pair of cloudy old eyes. No wonder you entered the void minefield for 2 years and were able to come out alive. It's all because of it. Mu Hanshu narrowed his old eyes and stared at Xiao Yang. His tone contained solemnity. At the same time, the fighting spirit in his body rushed to all parts of his body to quickly eliminate the sense of paralysis from all parts of his body. The characteristic of the power of thunder is to paralyze the body. Even Mu Han at the level of 9 stars and half emperors can't be avoided. Oh, Joshuan Golden Thunder? It was the guy who attacked me last time? On the void outside the square, Luo Jin raised his eyebrows slightly. Xiao Yang twice moved something to attack him. The first time was a strange fire, which Luo Jin knew for a long time. As for the second strange thing, he didn't know it until now. Why is this guy full of strange things, Joshuan Jin Lei, or half-emperor level? Logically, he should have his own consciousness. How can he follow him? Or is this guy willing to follow him? Luo Jin looked at Xiao Jin from a distance. A pair of dark and deep eyes showed a look of doubt. For a long time, Luo Jin took back his eyes, but shook his head and ignored it. Oh, now no matter how I survived, the important thing is, how should you face the 2 9-star and half emperors? Ignoring Mu Han's words, Xiao Yang sneered in a flat tone. As Xiao Yang's voice fell, the North King outside the trapped god array was also shocked by his body. He forcibly smashed the array that trapped him. His body flashed and appeared in front of the trapped god array. When Xiao Yang gave an order, the North King would blast to the trapped god array in front of him with the power of terror and destruction. Bastard! Yu Guang from the corner of his eye glanced obliquely at the North King outside the array, and then looked at Xiao Yang and Xiao Jin, especially Xiao Jin, whose momentum, even Mu Han in his heyday, had to face it with all his strength. What's more, beside him, there was Xiao Yang, whose strength could not be underestimated at the moment. Mu Han's face was extremely gloomy. His eyes suddenly fell on Zhongli below. He immediately sneered. A terrible ferocious smile appeared on an old face. When his body moved, he rushed to Zhongli in an instant. Gaga. Smelly boy, I want to see how you can take me even if you have 2 9-star and half emperors. Today, either hand over the emperor robbery pill or Zhongli will die. Gaga, Gaga. Even though there is still a long distance between them, Mu Han seems to be holding the winning ticket. He looks crazy, and people can't help feeling afraid when they see it. Seeing Zhongli close at hand, Mu Han sneered. Today, even if Xiao Yang is guarded by the 9-star and half emperor, as long as he still holds Zhongli's card in his hand, Xiao Yang will never dare to fight him. At the moment of Mu Han's departure, Xiao Yang also knew Mu Han's intention and immediately snorted coldly. He had never been threatened in Xiao Yang's life. At the moment, Mu Han poked his scales in order to rob the pill, which immediately made Xiao Yang's anger rise again. From the appearance to just now, Xiao Yang has been suppressing the anger in his heart. Although Zhongli almost had an accident, he is still alive. As long as he is alive, Xiao Yang is sure to restore him to his peak. However, what Xiao Yang can't think of is that even at this moment, Bei Wang and Xiao Jin appear as many as possible. He is still obsessed with Emperor Robbery Pill. He really doesn't know what death is. Die. With a cold drink, Xiao Yang's heart moved. The vast and terrible soul power in the center of his eyebrows suddenly poured out, and the fighting spirit surged. In the void, strands of lacquer black energy invisible to the naked eye quickly gathered in front of Xiao Yang and condensed into a space wormhole. At the next moment, Mu Han, who was in the rush of extreme speed, suddenly changed his face. He even forgot that Xiao Yang's void avenue can cross the void at will, which is more direct than the ordinary flight speed. However, while his face changed, the void in front was suddenly torn. Xiao Jin and Xiao Yang stepped out of it and blocked Mu Han's way. I was just going to teach you a lesson, but since you have to go your own way, I'll take your life today. Xiao Yang looked at Mu Han coldly, and his heart read a move. The Avenue Gore's clothes quickly condensed on him. After the sound fell, Xiao Jin sent out a sky-shaking dragon chant in his mouth. A pair of huge golden eyes stared at Mu Han, and a terrible breath also filled the air. Click. With a crisp click, it is known as the trapped god array that no one can break under the fighting emperor. It finally breaks up at the moment. The array fragments scattered gradually, turned into a golden glow, and slowly floated between the heaven and the earth. At this point, the trapped god array is broken. As the trapped god array was broken, 2 rays of light, one black and one gold, flew quickly, and finally landed next to Xiao Yang, who was facing Mu Han at the moment. The 2 lights and shadows were the North King and Xiao Jin. Seeing that the trapped god array was broken, Mu Han's face trembled with anger, and the look on an old face was green and white. However, compared with this, Mu Han's heart is more deeply dignified at the moment. At the same time, in the face of 2 9.5 emperors, this itself is a great pressure for Mu Han. What's more, in addition to the North King and Xiao Jin in front of him, there is another Xiao Yang standing by and staring at him. For Xiao Yang, today's Mu Han will no longer treat him as an ordinary 5-star and half emperor. At this moment, under this seemingly thin body, what terrible power is hidden? Even if it is as strong as Mu Han, my heart has to feel dignified for it. Never underestimate your opponent. This sentence is really reflected in Xiao Yang. Above the void, Xiao Yang stared at Mu Han not far away from him. At the moment, there was a gorgeous fire beating in the dark pupil. I hate those who threaten me most in my life and kill all those who threaten me, so you are no exception. The icy cold words just fell. Bei Wang, who was beside Xiao Yang, suddenly stepped on the void, and the space burst. Bei Wang's body also rushed at Mu Han like a loaded shell. Seeing the North King coming from the storm, Mu Han was afraid to be careless. His dry palm was quickly lifted up, and the Vajra array was condensed on his body surface during the change of the printing formula in his hand. Vajra array. Vajra body protection. The cry fell, and the North King's body was already in front of him. Mu Handang even punched out and collided with the dark iron fist facing the North King. Dang! The heavy sound like a bell rang suddenly. The deafening hum made everyone's face change slightly, and they were shocked. Under that terrible power, the void around them collapsed instantly, and the terrible wave generated by the collision of 2 fists turned into a hurricane and swept through the void. For the first time, The North King and Mu Han were equally divided. When the two separated, Xiao Yang's little Jin twisted his huge body, roared in his mouth, and then he was glittering with thunder. With a swish, he turned into a huge golden thunder column and rushed into the battle circle between the North King and Mu Han. With the addition of Xiao Jin, the balance of the previous moment is no longer there. Two 9-star and half emperors face one 9-star and half emperor at the same time. In this level of war, this is enough to create an overwhelming advantage. In a short moment, Mu Han's momentum is no longer stronger than before. At the same time, he faces two strong men of the same level, and he is still two guys like monsters. Even if he has an array to help, he is difficult to defeat after all. After all, the power of the 9-star and half emperor is really too strong. Even the King Kong array, which he is proud of, is weaker and weaker under the crazy bombardment of the two guys in front of him. Obviously, the King Kong array can't last long. However, if it's just like this, but when Mu Han's eyes inadvertently glanced at Xiao Yang, his heart was suddenly surprised, and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart. At the moment, Xiao Yang stood calmly in the void and stared at the different fires with different colors in front of him. These different fires add up, but almost occupied the whole list of different fires. Of course, from Mu Han's experience, we can naturally see that these different fires are only sub-fires, but that's the case, but the chill in his heart has not been reduced. At the same time, in the void outside the square, Luo Jin and Shenlao also looked at the scene in front of Xiao Yang from a distance. Luo Jin doesn't need to say much. When he was facing the split cloud wolf, he saw Xiao Yang pose like this. However, compared with the moment, there were only a few different fires sacrificed by Xiao Yang at that time. At the moment, Xiao Yang almost sacrificed all the strange fires on the strange fire list. Because of this, Luo Jinfang was shocked. Xiao Yang's horror was much more than he expected. But compared with Luo Jin, Shenlao on one side was even more frightened. For a long time, he just thought Xiao Yang might control 3 or 4 kinds of different fires, but he didn't expect that now he saw with his own eyes that Xiao Yang almost moved out the whole list of different fires, which really shocked him, an old man from the central region. After all, strange fire, even if it is placed in the whole middle region, it is difficult to see, even if you want to see it. Even if it is only Zihua, only a few big forces or families can own it, but Xiao Yang in front of you can sacrifice it all. If it is spread to the middle region, I don't know how much storm it will cause. Compared with the frightened look of several people outside, Xiao Yang is devoted to these strange fires in front of him. At this moment, there are a total of 21 different kinds of different fires in front of him, which almost includes the whole list of different fires. Of course, the other two are not there, naturally Black Yang who has disappeared and Jiu who is in his body at the moment. Different fires were sacrificed. Xiao Yang didn't hesitate. His mind moved. The surging soul power in the center of his eyebrows immediately poured out. Then, under Xiao Yang's control, different fires began to integrate. With the fusion of different fires, an extremely terrible atmosphere of destruction also gradually dispersed, but anyone who felt it was shocked in his heart. At this time, Mu Han, who is struggling with Bei Wang and Xiao Jin on the other side, also pays attention to Xiao Yang from time to time with the remaining light from the corner of his eye. The heart is divided into 3 uses, which makes Mu Han feel frightened by the different fire in front of Xiao Yang. In the face of the oncoming Bei Wang and Xiao Jin, he has less power to parry. However, in a short clip, Bei Wang and Xiao Jin left several scars of different sizes on him. Time passed slowly. At a certain moment, Mu Han, who was covered with blood, was blown away by the oncoming North King again. Only then did he have the opportunity to take a quick look at Xiao Yang, but at a glance, the look on his whole old face suddenly became very frightened. I saw that in the void in front of Xiao Yang at the moment, with the perfect integration of the last wisp of different fire, a beautiful colorful fire lotus appeared on the void. With the advent of Huolian, an extremely terrible smell of pure destruction also spread rapidly. Everyone who touched it changed his face one after another, and his heart was even more frightened. Everyone can clearly realize that under this destructive force, any breath of life will be ruthlessly torn apart by it. In the void, this seemingly beautiful fire lotus is like a beautiful snake. Anyone who intends to get close will be devoured by it. This fire lotus can be called a real killing machine. When the beautiful fire lotus appeared in the void, everyone present could not help being attracted by its gorgeous color, but at the same time, everyone was filled with horror at the fire lotus in front of Xiao Yang. Over the square, Xiao Yang controlled with his soul power. There was a gorgeous fire lotus the size of a wash basin in front of him. His body slowly flew past and came to Bei Wang and Xiao Jin. Then he slowly raised his eyes and looked indifferently at Mu Han opposite. The latter noticed Xiao Yang's eyes, and his wrinkled old face couldn't help showing a deep dignified look. Facing Xiao Yang, this seemingly inexperienced young boy in front of him, at this moment, Mu Han's heart finally couldn't help but raise a little fear. Although he tried his best to suppress it, Xiao Yang in front of him would still be invisible, making him feel a kind of seemingly non-existent pressure, which made Mu Han's breath become a little heavy involuntarily. Especially when his eyes touched the gorgeous fire lotus in front of Xiao Yang, his heart could not help but tighten slightly. Most of the reasons why Xiao Yang can bring him the kind of pressure that frightens him in his heart is because of the gorgeous fire lotus that is floating in front of Xiao Yang at the moment. Staring at the fire lotus in front of Xiao Yang with dignified eyes, Mu Han felt the hidden breath from time to time, and his heart was cold. Although the fire lotus looks harmless to humans and animals, the smell of destruction emanates from it. Even Mu Han, who is a 9-star and a half Earth, can't help feeling terrified after being aware of it. At the same time, the bottom of his heart can't help but wonder that he has such a terrible atmosphere of destruction. Is this power really only what Xiao Yang, a 5-star and a half emperor, can do? Mu Hansi had no doubt that if the fire lotus broke out completely, even the 9-star and half emperor would never underestimate its power. But no matter what he thinks in his heart, Xiao Yang really controls the fire lotus at the moment, and the power of destruction falls on Xiao Yang's palm. Rock Owl, it's better to stay on the front line. I admit that these two guys are here today. I really can't hurt you, but if you continue to pester like this, it won't do you any good. Mu Han's eyes were empty and secret. His dark eyes swept the eyes of Bei Wang and Xiaojin, and then he looked at Xiao Yang. Although the words sounded soft, the tone of his speech revealed his reluctance in his heart. Hearing Mu Han's words, Xiao Yang knew in his heart that the old boy in front of him must be afraid of the Buddha anger lotus in his hand. In addition, Bei Wang and Xiao Jin were present. At that time, once the Buddha anger lotus broke out, no matter how strong he was, he would die. And it was after figuring this out that Mu Han dared not continue to make trouble. After all, the price of making trouble again, but his old life. Mu Han has lived most of his life and can reach this point. Of course, he cherishes his own life more. It is not worth losing his life for an imperial robbery pill. Ha ha. Xiao Yang sneered, and Xiao Jin seemed to imitate and emit two low dragon chants. When a pair of huge eyes looked at Xiong Mu Han, they were full of disdain. Glancing at Xiao Jin, Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows and then took back his eyes. His face suddenly returned to indifference. His eyes turned and shot at Mu Han. After a few breaths, he said in a gloomy tone, "I said I would kill you today." Hearing the words from Xiao Yang's mouth, Mu Han frowned and stared at the gorgeous fire lotus on Xiao Yang's hand again. Mu Han's cheek couldn't help a violent convulsion. Xiao Yang in front of him really didn't pay any attention to him. With this in mind, Mu Han's heart suddenly raised a group of anger. He clenched his fists under his sleeve and robe, and wanted to rip Xiao Yang's cramps to the bone to relieve his hatred. But he also knows his situation at the moment. Only with Xiao Yang of Bei Wang and Xiaojin can he be called the real first person under the emperor. After all, with Xiao Yang's strength at the moment, I'm afraid the only way to kill him is to fight the emperor. After a good film, Mu Han raised his eyes again and looked at Xiao Yang. They were separated by 100 feet, and their cold and cloudy eyes looked at each other in the distance with Xiao Yang's indifferent eyes. In the middle of their sight, the void space gradually distorted, and then after a few breaths, the distorted space burst. Mu Han's hen exhaled and looked at Xiao Yang with a gloomy face. After a long time, he said in a low tone, Rock Owl, I'd better advise you to stop. The fire lotus in your hand is not weak, but once you let it explode, you can't bear the result." Hearing this, Xiao Yang's indifferent face finally changed a little. Indeed, it was something he had never thought of. Once Buddha's anger lotus breaks out over the wild ancient city, at that time, the war between him and Mu Han will affect not only the two of them, but also the whole wild ancient city. Xiao Yang frowned. He didn't want to let go of such a good opportunity to kill Mu Han. After all, once the matter was exposed, it would be difficult to kill Mu Han in the future. But once you start today, the whole wild ancient city will be affected, which Xiao Yang can't do. In order to achieve his goal at all costs, only the Soul family can do this, and what he hates most in Xiao Yang's life is the Soul family. Gaga, gaga. Seeing Xiao Yang's tangled appearance, Mu Han immediately burst into laughter. He had expected that Xiao Yang would not spread the damage to the whole wild ancient city in order to kill him. At the moment, it was really good. When Xiao Yang heard Mu Han's reckless laughter, Sen Han's killing intention just pressed down in his heart immediately turned up again. At the thought that Mu Han almost killed Qin Zhong and seriously injured Jiyu Li, Xiao Yang's anger didn't come at all. At the moment, I saw that there was a great opportunity to kill Mu Han, but I couldn't do it because of my concerns. Thinking like this, Xiao Yang's anger was even stronger. Drink, I said, today, you must die. Suddenly, when Mu Han was laughing fiercely, Xiao Yang suddenly gave a startling drink in his mouth. At the same time, his right foot took a step forward. Xiao Yang's whole body was up and down, and the turbulent different fire suddenly spewed out, covering him into a burning man. Later, the North King and Xiao Jin moved together and turned into two thunderbolts. In a moment, they had come to Mu Han's body, one left and one right blocking Mu Han's retreat. Today, Xiao Yang will kill Mu Han. When Mu Han saw this scene, his face suddenly coagulated and his heart was shocked. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang in front of him was so cruel. In order to kill him, he didn't take into account the lives of the people in the wild ancient city. Looking around, Mu Han's face was more dignified. With Bei Wang and Xiao Jin, he had no way back. In addition, Xiao Yang, who was walking step by step, looked at the gorgeous fire lotus slowly rotating in his hand. Mu Han was extremely frightened in his heart. Rock Owl, you should know. If you let go of the fire lotus, I will not be the only one who will die. Those under the half-emperor in the wild ancient city will become my burial object. Wow dash. Mu Han's voice fell, and everyone outside understood the situation in the end. As long as Xiao Yang offered the fire lotus in his hand, few people present could survive. With this in mind, countless people in the field were frightened. Many people were afraid and fled outside the wild ancient city. Of course, there are many people who have confidence in Xiao Yang. They also believe that Xiao Yang is definitely not the kind of person who ignores the integrity. People who kill people all over the city for their own personal hatred are not worthy of their support. I've said it twice. Today, I'll take your life. If I die, you will also be hated in this wilderness. I don't believe it. Can you kill everyone? Above the void, they glared at each other, and kept shouting loudly in their mouths. Seeing Xiao Yang's murderous face, Mu Han was extremely frightened. The look on an old face was uncertain. His face twitched with the emotion in his heart, and his breathing became more and more heavy. Rock Owl, you. Noisy. This time, Mu Han just opened his mouth, but Xiao Yang interrupted him impatiently. At the same time, in the depths of the eyebrows, the surging vast soul power suddenly poured out of the body, and the fighting spirit in the body was also raised. The left hand that has been idle extends out of the sleeve robe at the moment. With the crazy suction in the palm of Xiao Yang's left hand, in the void space, strands of lacquer black mysterious energy like a small snake quickly manifest, and then all of them flow into the palm of Xiao Yang's left hand. These mysterious energies are the power of the road controlled by Xiao Yang. This is the power of the road. What does this boy want to do? Seeing Xiao Yang exerting the power of the road again, Mu Han's heart unexpectedly involuntarily surged into a sense of danger. But then Mu Han realized that the power of the road condensed in Xiao Yang's palm was more than what he could condense 2 years ago. It seems that in 2 years, Xiao Yang got more benefits than he thought. How could it be? But in 2 years, how could this boy's control of the power of the road reach such a point? What has this boy done in these 2 years? Mu Han was frightened in his heart, and the look on his old face became very dignified. The power of the road condensed by Xiao Yang made him feel the breath of approaching death. In this regard, Xiao Yang sneered. Since he found that the thunder in the empty thunder pool contained a little space power, he naturally did not dare to slack off. If he could swallow it, he would never keep it. With the power of the road controlled by Xiao Yang, it has been enough to envelop a world, and this is what he is about to do at the moment. At the next moment, when the power of the road in Xiao Yang's palm condensed into a lacquer black energy group the size of a basketball, Xiao Yang suddenly grasped the left palm, and the lacquer black energy group in his hand was like a balloon, which was pinched and exploded by Xiao Yang. The black energy mass exploded with a bang, turned into hundreds of energy snakes and spread rapidly. Immediately, Xiao Yang's eyes were cold, his left arm shook, his sleeve robe waved fiercely, and his soul power quickly controlled those painted black energy snakes to condense a painted black energy mask, covering all Xiao Yang, Mu Han and others in the field at the moment. Seeing this scene, Mu Han was secretly surprised. The dark mask made him have a feeling that he couldn't see through. The feeling of darkness and emptiness was like being in an endless void. Mu Han's face twitched and stared at the light mask shrouding this space, and his heart shook unceasingly. If you want to kill you, you don't have to lose other people's lives. Xiao Yang's tone was indifferent. He was confident that with this curtain of light, the remaining power after the outbreak of Fire Lotus should be able to resist 7 or 8 out of 10, and that was enough, at least not to destroy the wild ancient city. When the voice fell, Xiao Yang also came to the position 10 feet away from Mu Han's body. With one hand holding the Buddha's anger lotus, he stared at Mu Han fiercely and wanted to fight. Mu Han sees Xiao Yang leaving no room at all, and a rage rises in his heart. As a 9-star-and-a-half emperor, when did he suffer such a great humiliation that he was forced to have no way out by a 5-star-and-a-half emperor and was about to die? How could he bear such humiliation? Drink, boy. Since you have to kill me, I will take you with me today even if I'm in danger of falling. Li drank down and Mu Han raised his hands quickly. The fighting spirit in his body also moved with the change of Indian knot, just like he wanted to explode. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang snorted coldly. If he dared to fight, he was not afraid that Mu Han would explode. He immediately shouted and said, "Stop him. If you want to explode, I'm not as good as you want." When the cry fell, the North King and Little King Tun burst out, one on each side, but they forcibly pressed down Mu Han who wanted to explode. Immediately, Mu Han's chi and blood flowed back, and a big mouthful of blood could not help spraying out. The whole person's breath also became weak in an instant. Xiao Yang sneered and pushed out the fire lotus with his palm. He pressed the fire lotus in his hand on Mu Han's head. At this moment, Mu's cold heart was like ashes, and his heart was full of regret and reluctance. He regretted that he shouldn't have listened to Mo Zhai and had a grudge against Xiao Yang. He was unwilling to let Xiao Yang escape 2 years ago, which made him pay such a price. Today, he is a 9-star-and-a-half emperor. In the end, he is going to die in the hands of a 5-star-and-a-half emperor. How can he be reconciled? At this moment, Mu Han was frustrated and unwilling to close a pair of turbid old eyes, waiting for the next moment of death. However, the next moment. Brother Yang Xiao, keep people under you. With this cry falling, not only Xiao Yang, but also Mu Han, who is looking like a dead grey at the moment, can't help feeling a little surprised. Who else will speak for him in this wild ancient city? In the past, Mu Han, who was high above, did harm people in the wild ancient city with his own identity and status, but because of the latter's strength, everyone just swallowed it. Therefore, while he has been looked up to by others over the years, he has also secretly buried many people who hate him. Now, seeing that Mu Han is about to die under Xiao Yang's hand, many people present are secretly happy. If Mu Han dies, they will be less oppressed, which is naturally what they want to see. But if so, who will be the one who stops it now? At this moment, for the owner of this voice, among all the people present, apart from Shen Lao, only Xiao Yang knows that the owner of this voice is Luo Jin. His eyes narrowed, Xiao Yang was full of doubts, but then he turned around and kicked Mu Han's chest. With the blood sprayed again, Mu Han's face turned red and was kicked out by Xiao Yang. Forcibly stopped his body, Mu Han raised his head ferociously, and his eyes shot at Xiao Yang fiercely. "Stay there honestly, or I'll kill you even if he stops you." Mu Han's cruel eyes just came into contact with Xiao Yang, and the latter's cold and low voice came out immediately. At the same time, Bei Wang and Xiaojin also turned to Mu Han, with cold killing intention, and invisibly put more pressure on Mu Han. First, hearing Xiao Yang's cold words, Mu Han had a stronger chill in his heart. At the moment, he saw Bei Wang and Xiaojin surround himself again. At the moment, he had to cough helplessly. His eyes were always vigilant and looked at Xiao Yang and his gang in front of him. He stood in the void. As expected, he didn't make any action. Seeing Mu Han's appearance, Xiao Yang took back his eyes. With a light frown, he turned and looked at the dark mask. He could feel that Luo Jin was there, but he didn't intervene forcibly because of the mask. His mind moved. At this moment, the light mask in front of Luo Jin suddenly opened an entrance for only one person to pass through. Luo Jin looked at the black energy mask in front of him, and there was a brilliant flow in the depths of his pupils. With his insight, nature knows that what condenses into this black energy mask must be the power of the road. However, for the time being, he can't tell which middle avenue it is. After all, there are many black avenues in the world. He can't recognize what kind of avenue it is by color alone. But the deep breath revealed from the mask, Luo Jin's heart, has also guessed. With a big step, Luo Jin entered the enveloping range of the energy mask, and the light mask behind him closed again. When he came to Xiao Yang frowned and looked at Luo Jin in front of him. He glanced at Mu Han, who was surrounded by the North King and Xiao Jin at the moment, glanced and sighed, and asked, "What's the matter? You have to protect him?" Xiao Yang's tone was full of some complaints. If Luo Jin hadn't stopped it, Mu Han at the moment would have been a corpse. Hearing the speech, Luo Jin shook his head with a bitter smile. He also seemed quite helpless for the meaning in Xiao Yang's words. Xiao Yang naturally knew the rage in his heart. If he could, he wouldn't mind Mu Han's death, but the current situation forced Luo Jin to keep Mu Han. Shrugging his shoulders, Luo Jin looked at Xiao Yang with a wry smile and said, "I don't care about this guy's life or death, but there's one thing I have to remind you." Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows and frowned slightly. His eyes stared at Luo Jin in front of him, showing a touch of doubt. Luo Jin smiled and nodded. The words from his mouth made Xiao Yang feel irrelevant. "I remember once you told me that after you entered the Void Minefield, you would leave the wild ancient city and enter the western regions. Do I remember well?" "Yes." Although he was confused, Xiao Yang was not eager to pursue the problem, but patiently waited for Luo Jin to solve his doubts. When he heard Xiao Yang's answer, Luo Jin nodded again, and then let Xiao Yang look back. He also opened his eyes and looked at his Mu Han suspiciously, and then slowly opened his mouth and said, "Then you should also know that the only place on the southwest border where there is a state transmission array is the wild ancient city. As a third-order array mage, he controls the array." Luo Jin's voice dropped, but Xiao Yang could not help but frown slightly. He was a little surprised. His eyes first looked at Mu Han behind his eyes, and then turned to Luo Jin again. He said in doubt, "Why, without him, the transmission array can't be used?" Luo Jin shrugged, but nodded again. Seeing Luo Jin nodding, Xiao Yang felt a little tangled in his heart. If he really killed Mu Han as Mu Han said, wouldn't he cut himself off? In the void, Xiao Yang frowned and thought about something. Only after the good film was carved, did he look up at Luo Jin again and ask, "Can't you control this transmission array with your chart?" "If you can, it's impossible." Xiao Yang's voice did not fall, but Luo Jin immediately said, "My astrolabe is just a complex array disk. Although it can let me release the array even if I'm not an array mage, it's just with the help of its own power, which can't let me control the array at will. After all, if it's like what you said, isn't all array mags in the mainland worthless?" Hearing this, Xiao Yang suddenly had no choice but to smile bitterly. It seems that what he thinks is too simple, but then he seemed to think of something and asked again, "I remember that there is also a transmission array in your array. Just use your transmission array. It's useless." Luo Jin interrupted Xiao Yang again. "This is a state transmission array. Unless he is a fifth-order array mage, no one can easily condense the array. Although Mu Han is controlling the array every day, in fact, he is just an agent of the array. This array has existed for thousands of years." At this point, Xiao Yang also understood. Looking at this, the state transmission array of the wild ancient city is really not good without Mu Han. So, if you want to go to the western regions, you can only rely on Mu Han? At the thought of Mu Han, Xiao Yang's anger burst out involuntarily. Now he can't tolerate this guy who wants to rob him repeatedly. But now in order to transmit the array, he had to keep him, which made Xiao Yang feel tangled in his heart. Suddenly, Xiao Yang raised his eyebrows and looked at Luo Jin again, saying, "By the way, since this transmission array only needs people to control, we just need to find another array mage, should we?" Puff. Hearing this, Luo Jin couldn't help laughing. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang was still struggling with it after saying so much. After laughing for a while, Luo Jin slowly looked up, looked at the latter with a sad face and said, "What you said is really good, as long as someone controls the array." Before the words fell, Xiao Yang's face showed a touch of cruelty again. As long as he could kill Mu Han, the old boy would become. Everything else was put aside first. But Xiao Yang wants to turn around with a fierce murderous spirit, but Luo Jin opens his mouth again. This opening makes most of the rising flame in Xiao Yang's heart go out in an instant. Xiao Yang stared at Luo Jin with a gloomy face. The latter was also quite helpless. He looked at Xiao Yang with a bitter smile. Luo Jin said again, "Controlling this array requires at least a third-order array mage. I'm afraid there are few array mags at this level in the whole southern region. Where do you want me to find someone?" As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the field once became silent. Xiao Yang and Luo Jin looked at each other, but they were helpless to shake their heads. After a good film, Xiao Yang suddenly turned around with a fierce face and shouted, hit me hard." Even if you can't kill him, you'll beat him up. This video will end here.